everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Oshina. I'm sharing all of my favorite books that I read in 2022. I love making this video. I love talking about my favorite books, and I read some really good books this year. I'm just gonna go in the order that I read them, so starting in January. I'm gonna refrain from explaining in detail what these books are about. I'm mostly gonna explain why I loved them. I've talked about a lot of these books in all of my wrap-ups and in other recommendation videos. So I'm just going to talk about the key things that I loved about each book so that it's not a super long video. I didn't count how many books I have, but it is a large stack. So, okay, my first favorite is Lulu's Cafe by T.I. Lowe. This book surprised me, and I think that's why I loved it so much, because I didn't really love the trilogy that I read by her previously, the Carolina Coast series. I wasn't wowed by it. I gave every book basically 3 stars, whatever. But this is a 5-star amazing book just because the story was so deep and I really felt connected to our main character. She's on the run and she has no hope. She needs help and she doesn't know where to go. And then Lulu has a cafe and Lulu sees her and just knows that she needs someone to look after her for a little while. So she gives her a job and she ends up living with her above the cafe. And it's just a beautiful story of healing and discovering God's redemption and then a romance. And I just loved it. This is the kind of deep romance that I love to read, especially when faith is there. It just has everything that I want in a story. And I thought it was really well done. I really liked it. It was also had lighthearted moments, there was, some happy, funny times, but it also had that depth to it, which I loved. Okay, next is a reread, but I just had to say it because this is still a favorite. So it's so amazing how God can speak some parts. And so I was like, wow, yeah, it's intense, but it's worth it. It's a good read. It really contrasts the darkness and the light and how light always wins, and it's so satisfying. I also feel really special about this book now because I did kind of a read along and a live show discussing this book. I did the live show with my friend Amy, so I'll link we do discuss a lot of aspects of this book in that video, so if you wanted to see that. And then I did also review the movie because the movie did come out in 2022 and I enjoyed it, so I did make a whole review video for it. So I'll link those down below if you want to see more, but yes, still love this book. Okay, in February, my favorite book was The Delusion by Laura Gallier. This book was so beautiful. It made me cry because I had recently read This Present Darkness. I read it in November of 2021. So then in February of 2022, I read The Delusion, and they're very similar just in, I guess, the themes that they're talking about. So with this one, it's a young adult story about the supernatural world with angels and demons. And I just loved it because the way the author contrasted the people that weren't Christians, that didn't know Jesus, to the people who were Christians. I loved that distinguish just because it was completely supernatural. It wasn't visible, no one would know. And yet some of us are walking around with burdens and chains, and some of us are walking around with light and angels. And I just was really inspired by that. And again, the power of prayer was really highlighted in this book, and I just loved it. I really loved it. I loved everything that came about in the end as well. So that was definitely a good one. I'd recommend it. My next favorite is Rain Rain by Anna Martin. And I did not expect to like this book because typically middle grade stories I don't love. There's a few gems that I do love, but I don't know, because this is the author of The Babysitter's Club. I thought that it might have that same level of lightheartedness, but it was very deep for being middle grade, just because it follows a child. It's in the perspective of a girl who has Asperger's, and it was told in such a beautiful, sweet way. It really made me love this girl, and just seeing the way she thinks and everything. It was just such a nice story to read, and I super enjoyed it. Even the plot and the different aspects of the story, I just really enjoyed myself reading it. So yeah, it's definitely a favorite for the year. Okay, next. Yes, this is a really good book. Okay, All That It Takes, Nicole Deese. This came out in 2020 and I loved it, okay? This is a sequel to All That Really Matters, so you don't have to read them in order, but I think you would know the characters a bit better if you read the first book already. So I'd recommend doing that, although I do think this is the better book just because of the characters and the themes that are talked about. It's just like, oh, it just gets you in the heart. I feel like especially for women, because it does kind of have a plot around homelessness, pregnancy and abortion and stuff like that. So it is intense, but that's what I like about stories like this. Like, please don't sugarcoat things, and please show how like dark and low your life can get, and then how Jesus meets you in that low point and shows you the way out. It's so satisfying. So that's what this book did. And then I loved the romance because I felt like it was very mature, working things out. Yes, there's some misunderstandings, but they forgive. And I just was like, thank you, finally, you know? So yes, I loved this book. Okay, this is one I didn't expect to love, but it's The Art of Losing Yourself by Katie Ganshurts. This is so special because I did also buddy read it with Bailey, and I loved doing that. The only thing is it felt like too short. Like I wanted more. It was such a well-told story, and I really felt connected to these characters right away. You follow two sisters and you get to see from their perspectives. One is like much older than the other one, so just like seeing that contrast, I could relate to both of them, but particularly the older sister. I just saw her. I just felt like she was real and like her emotions were there, and I just enjoyed reading about it. And really it was the faith growth of these characters, but then also the relationship dynamics between the sisters, and then also the older sister and her husband. That really stood out to me. I'm very fascinated by reading about marriages and how characters work in them, and I don't know, it's just something that I don't have any experience in other than what I've seen and witnessed. So yeah, I just really loved this book. I'd highly recommend it. It was definitely a really good one. Okay, this book is really good too. Okay, some of these I don't own, which is too bad, but Iscariot by Tosca Lee. I was captivated by this book. Okay, a lot of you know it is in this perspective of Judas Iscariot from the Bible. He is the disciple that betrays Jesus, and this is his life story from his eyes. And of course, it's completely fictional. It's speculation. I'm not saying this is actually how it happened, but it at least gave me a perspective on him that I had never considered before. He's very glossed over. He tends to be just like the bad guy, and we leave it at that, and none of us want to be like him. And just, I don't know, it humanized him for me, this book, and I sympathized with him. I don't know, it was good for me to see that, like, do not judge. You don't know what's going on in a person's heart and what is behind their actions. And that was just a good reminder for me. And I thought it was really well done. I was very impressed. It did make me interested to read more from Tosca Lee, but if she writes any other kind of stories like this, like biblical fiction, I guess, I'm in for it. Okay, next, Things You See When a Fire, Catherine Center. Every one of her books that I've read has been on a favorites list because the themes, the life stories that she writes about are so relatable, so deep, so like morally driven and like personal growth driven. I love it, okay? And I love her characters. Like, she just writes really real characters, but characters you can look up to at the same time. And really the biggest thing that stands out about this book is closer to the end, there's a scene of like just unconditional, undeserved grace and mercy shown. And it was truly the heart of God, in my opinion. Like, not that this author knows what she's doing, but like, I think God is using her writing, because this is not a Christian book. There is language in this book. It's not too bad, but it's there. And they do talk about, you know, adult themes. There are no explicit bedroom scenes, but you know, it's definitely not like a clean Christian fiction, but yet the themes and it felt like it a little bit, like, and that's what stands out, and I'm impressed. Like, I just will continue to read her books because there's something about her, the way she writes, I just love it. So yeah, this is a favorite for sure. And a subscriber sent this to me for Christmas, so thank you so much. Okay, I definitely forgot this book from January, In Search of a Prince, and then I should also add To Win a Prince as well. This is a little duology that came out in 2022, and it took BookTube by storm. It is very impressive. Like, Tony Shiloh, thank you, because it's really the themes, but then also the storyline that is just so good and like exactly what we want to read, right? Because first of all, a royalty romance, there's something about it, right? Like, we all kind of wish that could happen. Anyways, it's fun. And then really the faith though, because it was front and center. This main character, like, immediately prayer was on her mind. She was like, God, what are you doing here? What do you want me to get out of this? Like, how do I navigate the situation? It was so impressive the way that it was woven in so that it didn't feel cheesy. It just felt like, oh, this is like a real Christian girl going through something. It's amazing. So definitely recommend it. Okay, this is also a very good favorite. Then There Was You by Kara Isaac. This book. I need to buy it. I need to buy it because I loved it, okay? The writing, the characters, the storyline, exactly what I want, okay? Because it follows this girl who's like skeptical about church. She's been burned by the church, so she's like, I want nothing to do with this. God sucks. No, thank you. So she moves away from America and moves to Australia, and I really liked that setting. It was cool to be in a different country. I've read a couple books set in Australia, but they're always like really exciting. I like reading about them. But it's really, the characters were so solid. Like, this main girl, I just felt like I was like on her side, but also like wished that she would be open to the church again. And just like seeing her development there was like so satisfying. This is a funny book, okay? That's also what stands out. The humor was so good because she is definitely awkward and like funny things happen to her. And it's written in such a funny way. And then like, of course, the guy witnesses her awkwardness and he's like, he thinks she's adorable and also funny. And I'm just like, it was so good. Yeah, so I really enjoyed it and I'd highly recommend it. If you like books that I like, if you like Christian romance, this is a good one. You must read it. All right, next, The Cheat Sheet, Sarah Adams. I don't know, man. This book, it's like total cheese fluff. Everything that I loved to read like back in the day, it felt like a throwback and yet written well and just like a satisfying little story to read. I don't know. And I've compared it to Casey West. Similar, but like adult characters where it's just like cutesy and like just, you could eat it up. It's like really sweet. The main thing was the relationship. It's great. Friends to lovers, thank you. Fake dating, thank you. Closed door, thank you. There is some language in here, but it's like not very much and is over quickly. So yeah, it's kind of his friends that swear more than anything, and his friends are in it like twice. So anyways, other than that, they do mention it. It's definitely like has some suggestive language, but it felt very, I don't know, innocent to me just because of the way the characters were behaving in the moments. I was like, this is funny, not like inappropriate. That's where I felt about it. And I really enjoyed it. This is like when the girl secretly loves the guy and she's like, I don't know if he likes me back. And he's like very protective of her, but also respects her. They're best friends. And like, it's great. So yeah, and cute cover, like, thank you, Sarah Adams. Okay, I can't explain it, but this book, Aftermath, I think I have been sad that romantic suspense has felt very generic and boring and like overdone. But this one felt fresh to me for some reason. Like, first of all, it's a standalone, which was so nice. Like, thank you for the standalone, Terry Blackstock. And I just was really interested in this story. I think just all the aspects of the plot and what the characters were doing was like just right for me. We did get kind of three different perspectives. There are like three kind of main characters you're following, but they're very distinct, and you get a good enough scene with each of them at the beginning to understand who they are and like distinguish their voice in the writing. And I was just there for it. And then like the mystery and like even all the legal stuff and whatever, I just loved it. I really enjoyed myself. There was good faith in here. Obviously it's clean. And yeah, I was really satisfied with the ending. So it's a favorite. All right, I have Christmas books to talk about, but I did read one book in December that is a favorite. So I'll just share it now, even though it's out of order now. But Prophet, Frank Peretti. I made my first ever short with this video and it was completely spontaneous. I was like, I need to talk about this right now. What can I do? And I was like, there's shorts on YouTube. So I did that. Thank you for watching it if you did. So this book follows like a news station, and you do follow the main anchorman on the news channel. And he has a father who has kind of been labeled as this prophet on the news because he's always at like political rallies speaking against the politician who's running for office, because there's a lot of like secrets and bad things that this politician has been a part of that the dad knows about, and he's like, this is wrong, like you're deceiving everyone and whatever. There's that aspect. And then the anchorman is like, Dad, can you just get off the news, please? Like, you're making me look bad. So that's kind of the dynamic there. And it did take me a while, not a while, but like there are definitely sections where they explain exactly what's happening in the newsroom in terms of like, okay, camera 1, camera 2, commercial here. And like the commercial is explained and stuff like that, where I was like, I don't care about this. So I definitely skipped all of that. So for that, you could say maybe it's a 4.75 rating, but you can overlook it though, because the rest of the story was so good, but very intense, okay? Of course, because that's how Peretti goes. But wow, triggers, guys. Abortion is the main topic talked about here. And I think it is important to talk about because it kind of comes out of nowhere. I did not see it coming. Like when you first start it and you're reading and you're getting to know these characters, it's like, what is this going to be about? What is this scandal we're talking about? And then all of a sudden abortion is the main thing. And it's like, oh, what? And then you slowly see like how everything's connected, which is so satisfying. But yeah, so not that like things are super described, but they are like the feelings of these characters, what some of the girls have gone through, stuff like that. And it's like intense and it breaks your heart, but like in such a good way because of the way that it's written. It was really well done. And the kind of supernatural aspect of this is the main guy, John, he is given the ability by the Holy Spirit to hear the soul cries of people. And so sometimes he thinks someone's actually speaking to him when they're not. It's their soul. And then like there are times where he like can hear all the souls crying out at night in the town, and just like it was like, whoa, this is, again, it felt real. It felt like, wow, is this what's going on? You know, of all the lost souls out there, are there souls crying out for truth? And anyway, I just really liked those aspects as well. And just like the way the story went, man, like I also really liked that it wasn't wrapped up in a perfect bow at the end. Things weren't completely resolved. And I appreciated that because of what this story was about. Because I was like, how is everything going to get resolved? Because I was kind of thinking about this present darkness and piercing the darkness, and things are quite resolved, I would say, in those books. And you're very satisfied and you're like, okay, they're all set. This book is different and I appreciated that. So yeah, I loved it. And there's no romance in this book, you guys. So if you don't like romance, this is for you because there isn't really any in it. And I was okay with that because everything else was great. So I'm really glad that I read it. I snuck it in at the end of December and it was worth it. Okay, Christmas books. The first one is The Mistletoe Countess. This book was so fun. That was the main thing about it. Like, I had such a good time reading it. This main girl is hilarious. I found the romance really sweet. I found it endearing. I liked reading about it because it felt like these imperfect characters were trying to figure themselves out, figure out how to be married. Really the way that God was brought into all of it. There was a strong faith aspect to this book that made it all good for me. I did have a little cry at one aspect of this book where the girl is in a church and she is crying out to God, and just her prayers and the music and the revelations that she gets really spoke to me in that time, and so it's really special to me for that reason. And yeah, overall I loved it. I liked the mystery, the family was super funny. It was a great book. And I guess lastly is the last Christmas book, Sleigh Bells Ring by Rayanne Thane. This book just was such a random, out of nowhere book, but I'm so glad that I read it. It was just really sweet and like really what a Christmas book I want to be. I think what I loved most about this book was the way that the characters treated each other. Like, it was just mature adults. Thank you for the maturity. And this was very Christmassy. Like, there was decorating, there was like festive sleigh rides, it was very Christmassy. Christmas trees everywhere. I really enjoyed it. It was clean. There may have been a little bit of language, but like not any that stood out to me. And it was just such a sweet book. So I did really love that book. So those are all of my favorites, you guys. I don't think I forgot anything. I hope not. There may have been books that just almost made it. Like, I did read some pretty great 4-star books this year, but these are the best of the best. These are my 5 stars that I just really loved. So yeah, I hope you guys got some recommendations. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I will list all of the books down below once again. And thank you for watching, you guys. See you next time. I'm sweating. It's too hot. And my back is sore. And my butt is sore. Yeah, and I just, yeah. I did, so, yeah. All right, next,